Hello SGD, and I've been working on a series in regard especially to Sheshet and the record keeping librarians and the science and the connections most often connected to Thoth, but especially looking at Sheshet, which has been overlooked. But before I, first we're going to look at Ray Tour's Egypt Part 3, Luxor Temple Tour. Links will be in a description, and have a look at Happy as well as Scribes.
If you stand here and you use the camera please and you see the double figure of Habi. Habi, the Nile god with the big chest, big belly, roll belly, because he been rich god. When we see fat man in the village, it means that he's rich man, drinking much, eating much. So the god Habi, he being the Nile god, he had so much silt and water to support the land, the valley every summer. So he been represented like the rich men. He's joining the lotus or tying the lotus and the papyrus plants together, up together, making the union of the south and the north of the country. Around what? What's this? This is not. This is not the Nile and the valley around.
Yeah.
No. Some they say this is instrument rababa. No. These are the lungs and the trachea. Means that the south and the north of Egypt looks like in one body, one country. This was called Simatawi, the union of the two lands.
Semitawi. Semitawi.
Semitawi, you remember?
Lord of the two lands.
And you use the camera please and you see the double figure of Habi. Habi, the Nile god with the big chest, big belly, roll belly, because he been rich god. When we see fat man in the village, it means that he's rich man, drinking much, eating much. So the god Habi, he being the Nile god, he had so much silt and water to support the land, the valley every summer. So he been represented like the rich men. He's joining the lotus or tying the lotus.
So as we saw there, Happy, the Nile god of the flood, annual flood cycle, with a large belly and large breasts, man boobs, let's just say. Well, this is also depicted in high officials. So on the left we have Hemenu, and then we have these other statues were from the late kingdom period, some over basically 1,000 years after that. But each time what we see is these high officials, scribes, masters of the scribes, masters of record keeping, the viziers, essentially the prime ministers, you might say, of Egypt, and how they're depicted in this way, where they have a large belly and ample breasts. Now, on the left we see one of the variations of Imhotep, this very famous architect, astronomer, scribe, keeper of records, the vizier, essentially the bureaucrat, and how they have this wealth attached to them. So that's Amenophes, the son of Happy. This statue's in the Cairo Museum. Also very old, we see it there. But so just to look back at that statue of the flood god, the god of wealth and abundance and lots to eat, lots to drink, we see Happy once more as a comparison. Now that these fade in, so again, just to get a better view, we see the large belly, rolls hanging, and man boobs. So someone who was very wealthy, very powerful, had lots to drink, lots to eat. And so again we see that so what we have high officials who basically ran the country. So the pharaoh was more your talking head, if you want to put it in a modern sense, but these were the people who actually ran the show, and they were scribes, so they were highly intelligent, highly trained, but also they were wealthy, and they sat around a lot of the time, and well, just like office life, if you sit down too often. But I also notice, so I've zoomed in here, and you see both of these statues have the symbol of the scribe attached to them. So the scribe was, if you could, very few people could write. It was restricted knowledge. So not too long ago, the ability to read or write was restricted, and they too had, well, this seems to be a historical across the world, across time, where very few people could write. Those who did were highly educated, were in control of things. So these record keepers, such as Haremheb, depictions there, links will be in the description, but on his lap he has a scroll which has a hymn to Thoth, Thoth being the god of knowledge, of science, record keeping, astronomy, and so many other aspects. Now, in Haremhab's period, the late kingdom, Thoth had basically replaced Seshat. Seshat still had a few prominent roles, so for instance the stretching the cord ceremony, but at the symbol of the scribe, Thoth taught people how to write, Seshat invented it. Thoth spoke the magic words, Seshat wrote them down. The symbol of the scribe originally was attached to Seshat, and as time moved on, Thoth usurped her position in many ways. It became much more, let's just say, patriarchal, I suppose would be a way to describe it. But what's an important feature about this character is Haremheb was a high official under Tutankhamun and then a high official under King I. Tutankhamun and King I are not included in the Abydos kings list, for instance, along with Akhenaten and Hatshepsut. They're not included. They're heretical kings. But now if you have a look at thanks to Half a Sheep for this piece of video where he visits, again this is Temple of Seti I in Abydos, where we mentioned that king's list, and we see a depiction here of Seshat with the palm frond, and also you'll notice in her left hand she has the tools of the scribe. I'll pause it for the photo just to do a comparison. But the keeper of records, the person who, the bureaucrat, the administrator. So it's like over 1,000 kilometers from Upper Egypt to Lower Egypt, a huge territory. This requires sophisticated administration and a bureaucracy to keep all these things running and operating, as well as the astronomy and architecture. These were all the duties, the responsibilities of Seshat. Now it's more connected to Thoth, but well, let's give a bit, shout out to Seshat, who was the daughter and consort of Thoth. Now, here are back to Haremhab or Horemheb. Here are two statues, and both of them again, who has a big belly, rolls underneath his breasts and man boobs. He's rich. He's got lots to eat, lots to drink. But Haremheb later became the pharaoh himself, and now we see him seated next to Horus, and now he's lost the fat. He's lost those roles, and so that depiction of these oversized man boobs are not necessarily a literal depiction. They're showing it's a symbol of wealth and power. So there we see a better comparison. He's, as when he became a pharaoh, he would have been even richer with more to eat, with more to drink. Yet he's slimmed down and more muscular. It's a political image as well to show his strength. The pharaoh doesn't need to be fat to show off his wealth and his power. Now if we compare these to the famous heretic king Akhenaten, who was, along with Nefertiti, there was a deliberate effort to scrub them out of history, and their temples, what they had built, was dismantled. You'll see, what can I say, but like all sorts of ways to try and connect these images of Akhenaten to, let's say, it's a clickbait anyway. But what we see again, he's depicting himself very much like Hapu, with the larger breasts and the big belly. This possibly could be one of the reasons why the pharaoh should not be depicted in this heretical way, which was maybe one of amongst many reasons why Akhenaten was removed from history. So just a quick review, for instance, with Haremheb or Horemheb, around about the mid 13th century BC, in the late kingdom era, high official. He has a scroll on his scroll is a hymn to Thoth, replacing Seshat, but that scribe imagery was classical Seshat back in the old kingdom. Thoth took over that position, but when he was a high official, he's shown in with a big belly, rolls of fat, man boobs. When he became the king, he's shown in a much more masculine, lean, powerful image. Now, when he was pharaoh, he was obviously more rich, but the pharaoh didn't need to show his power in this way, as where high officials, very often in statues, are shown in this way. So, on the far left, we have Hemenu, which was a high official, architect, record keeper. In the Old Kingdom, we can see him depiction, but in the middle and on the right, we see Late Kingdom depictions where still the high official was described in this way. The scribe to be, if you were, only wealthy people knew how to write, only wealthy people were in these positions, and they would show off this wealth. This is even just before the industrialization, go any like classical rural village, where it's Africa, Europe, or Asia, or even South America, the rich man was the big man because he had more to eat, lots to drink. So that's a image. So again, also Akhenaten, clickbaity stuff of genetic manipulation, hybrids, and all that. It's actually, he was a heretic king. Every pharaoh would depict himself in this more powerful form, as where Akhenaten depicted himself very similar to the Nile Flood god Hapu, with the large engorged breasts and the big belly. This was possibly Akhenaten was a monotheist and upset the political religious structure of Egypt, making him a heretic king. One of the reasons why he was scrubbed out of the history, but also these were heretical images as well. To show himself in these ways was completely different from what had come before, and as soon as he was gone, they went back to the old ways and they removed or destroyed as much of the relics of Akhenaten that come from there. Now, I can't conclusively say he wasn't half alien or something, maybe, but based on the evidence, I know where I put my money. Anyway, with that, cheers. I'll finish with that clip from Ray's Tours.
If you stand here and you use the camera, please, and you see the double figure of Habi. Habi, the Nile god with the big chest, big belly, roll belly, because he been rich god. When we see fat man in the village, it means that he's rich man, drinking much, eating much. So the god Habi, he being the Nile god, he had so much salt and water to support the land, the valley every summer. So he been represented like the rich men. He's joining the lotus or tying the lotus.